Hey there everyone, it's Evil Monkey here. As you guys just saw on the screen, we hit 71 million DPS with Final Masterpiece. Now for those of you who don't know, this gun just got buffed to a ridiculous amount. This was to try and bring it in line with Last Dagger, but I think they may have actually overbuffed this gun. But because of that, I went ahead and made some builds. Now we got the boss killing build, which you guys just saw the result of. And I also made some general builds here because this gun does amazingly well in general content, with it having not only insane single target damage, but massive AoE damage as well, because all of its unique passives pretty much do AoE damage. Now, a few things about this build before we hop into it. Number one, for reference in this build, I am not running max weapon cores. I think my only max weapon core is my chill damage, everything else is purple. I'm missing about 9% fire rate. 2, I am an awful shot. So in that intro video where you saw 71 million, I actually missed a few shots there. And 3rd, I went ahead and ran this build several times against Tormentor. I would say the average max DPS, since we had to account for crit resistance, was about 58 to 68 million max DPS. 71 is where we crit a lot, but I believe the max DPS of this build will actually be truly a lot higher than this. But let's go ahead and hop into the video. Alright, now for the mod section, we're going to go ahead and break this up into 4 different sets of mods. For General Boss, Gley / Serena, and then finally Hailey. So if you guys want to get to any of those specific mod builds, there'll be timestamps below, and you guys can just click to whichever ones you want to. Well, let's go ahead and hop right in, starting with the boss one. Okay, now this bossing build right here for this mod set is the one that I used to hit that 71 million you guys saw at the beginning of the video. Now, let's just hop right into it. For chill enhancement, chill priority, we're running these because these are 2 elemental ones. Now, Masterpiece is actually a chill gun. It does have a base chill damage, so this is going to ramp it up. Now, you can technically replace these with other elements if you need to, but this is just going to get you your highest DPS. We run Ultra Precision Strike so that you can get the highest weak point. Final Masterpiece actually has a pretty decent weak point. I think it's like 2.11. And then we're running Firing Fiesta just so you can get limited ammo. You know, you don't have to reload. Unless you're playing Gley, then, you know, you can change that out. And then we're going to, of course, run Action Reaction and Rifling Reinforcement. Now these are just, you know, your average firearm attack ups. You're going to run this pretty much across any build in existence. So I don't think I need to really explain those. Same with fire rate up. You're pretty much going to only run this one because you want the highest fire rate possible. Now, if you guys want to know you want the highest fire rate possible, and we're also going to run those in cores, by the way, because you're going to want to trigger the Final Masterpiece passive as much as possible, get those damage procs. That's where the real damage comes from. And then you're going to want to run Better Insight because this is actually a crit gun with a pretty high base crit. Although I would recommend running Better Insight over Edging Shot just because it's not that big of a difference. It's like, I think Better Insight's 39% versus Edging Shot, which is like 41%. So it's not that big of a difference, and Edging Shot also minuses 15% of your firearm attack damage, which means your top threshold DPS is going to be much lower. So Better Insight just makes more sense. And then Concentration Priority and Better Concentration, because this is actually a fire crit rate gun again. And this will just help you hit your top DPS there. Okay, time to get into the Gley and Serena mod set. Now, I do think Gley and Serena have the highest potential DPS with this build. Especially Gley, but I think only if you pair her with Enzo. By the way, I think Enzo could run this build as well. Unfortunately, though, I don't have Enzo built, so I couldn't really test that one out. I've never actually made an Enzo build. But, you know, putting Enzo aside, let's go ahead and go into this mod breakdown. Now, you're going to want to run Edging Shot and Better Insight, get that maxed out crit value. This doesn't get you at 100%, but this is the highest crit value you'll be able to get on Gley and Serena without Enzo. Then you're going to want to run Concentration Priority and Better Concentration. This will once again get you your highest crit damage value. Don't forget this is a crit gun with fairly high base stats in each of those. Then you're going to want Chill Enhancement and Chill Priority. So once again, Masterpiece is a chill gun. This will get you your maxed out DPS. You could rotate these out with other elemental types, but this is one I recommend for this. And then action reaction and rifling reinforcement, as I've said multiple times, you're probably going to run these across every build for the maximum amount of firearm attack so that you can get the biggest proc of your passive, but you'll probably run this once again across every gun possible. Then you're going to want fire rate up. Now the reason we want this one is you're going to want the max amount of fire rate possible to keep proccing your passive on this gun so you can get all those nice explosions or, toxic puddles. And then finally, you're going to want have aiming. Now, I like have aiming on this one. You could also change that weak point, but this is a pretty accurate gun, so it's really whichever one you want. You won't really notice a dip in accuracy with have aiming, and just caps out the DPS a little bit higher. Okay, now the Hailey mods are actually a little bit different from the other ones. In fact, you only have to run 3 crit mods. You only have to run concentration priority, or concentration for your max crit damage, and then only Bear Insight. You don't need to run Edging Shot. This will get you about 97-ish% crit. Now, if you do rotate out with Bear Insight for Edging Shot, you can get actually 100% crit rate with this build, but you lose 15% firearm attack. So it's pretty much a question of, do you want the consistent 100% crit rate, or do you want the higher DPS threshold? It's up to you on that one. And then after that, the other unique thing is you're going to want to run double reload here. This will just help you with keeping your higher DPS window up. Now, if you do reload cancel a lot, you could actually swap these out for other DPS mods. Maybe weak point ones. That's an option for you guys. I personally like the reload because I don't want to have to constantly reload cancel. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and run, of course, chill priority and chill enhancement. Once again, this gun's a chill gun damage, so we're going to go ahead and run those to maximize our DPS. And then action reaction, rifling reinforcement, max out firearm damage, so you get the biggest proc to your passive as possible on this gun. And then fire rate up so that you can get the highest fire rate possible so you can get more proc to your passive, which is once again where the most of your damage is going to come from. This is the general build you can use across pretty much any character. Now, because of that, and this is for pretty much just in general use, not really bossing, it's going to have a lower DPS average. But we're going to run 4 crit mods. So we're going to run Bear Insight, Edging Shot, Concentration Priority, and Bear Concentration. This will just max out your crit damage and your crit rate. Then after that, we're going to run Chill Enhancement. This is once again, Masterpiece is a chill gun, so maxes out DPS. Then we're going to go ahead and run Recycling Genius. Now, I personally run this because I don't really want to reload cancel this gun because of how much I have to reload it. That's something I personally want to do, but if you can reload cancel or want to, you can actually replace this one with Chill Priority. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and run Action Reaction and Rifling Reinforcement. Once again, you're going to run this across pretty much any gun build. Same with Fire Rate Up. I don't really need to explain these, but with Fire Rate Up, once again, you want to proc that passive as much as possible. Then we're going to run Weak Point. This is just good Weak Point. You can also replace this with Have Aiming if you want to. The gun actually is fairly accurate, so you can choose either or. It just depends on what accuracy you want. Now for the weapon cores of this build, you're going to want to first off run 2 Fire Rate Ups. Now this is because you want to be able to proc your passive on the gun as much as possible, so you want to max out that fire rate. Then you're going to run 1 Firearm Attack Up. This is just generally good. And then Chill Damage Attack Up. This is because the gun has base chill attack damage, so this is going to work best for the highest DPS. And then for your purple, or it doesn't matter. The purple core is useless. Please, first Descendant team, rework purple cores because they are the most useless thing ever. Now for your weapon options, you're going to want to run crit rate up just so that you can get the max amount of crit rate possible. Hit damage up so you can get the max damage since you have pretty good crit scaling. Firearm attack up, which is just pretty standard. And then for your last one, I run weak point damage up, but if you really want to, you could also technically run chill damage. But I personally prefer weak point damage since Final Masterpiece actually has a decent base weak point damage. Alright, so we're about to hop into the character mods and their arcade trees. So I divided up each one into different timestamps. So if you guys are looking for a particular character, you can guys go ahead and use the timestamps to select whatever one you want. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into these. Build I used to hit that 71 million DPS you guys saw at the beginning of the video. This is a pretty standard Serena boss killing build, but we'll just go ahead and quickly run through it. You're basically going to want to run increased shield, increased HP, overwhelming HP, HP amplification, weighing the shields, or scales, my bad. This is so you get the max amount of HP possible, which is going to work with Serena's 4th ability, which ramps up damage based off your HP. Then you're going to want to run Nimble Fingers, and MP conversion. This is just so that you can spam out your abilities a little bit better, but in all honesty, you could just replace those two with either or. They're not necessary for just one-shotting a boss, so you could run duration or whatever you want to. Nimble Fingers and MP conversion are just a personal preference of mine. And then you're going to want to run Tightrope and Credential Recharge. These two work in tandem to get you to 50% HP and get you a massive attack boost at 50% HP. So Credential Recharge reduces your HP every time you cast an ability instead of your MP, and Tightrope at 50% HP gives you a massive boost to your attack damage. And then finally, we'll go ahead and run Shot Focus to get you the max amount of firearm attack as possible. Now for the boss killing build with Serena's arcade tree, this is just a fairly standard arcade tree. There's nothing too special about it. You're just trying to run as much attack as you can. You're going to want to run that defense neutralization or mutant cell. This is so that you can reduce the boss's resistance, since Serena's bullets count as her ability once her 4th ability is activated. And this will go ahead and proc that so that the boss gets reduced defenses. And then of course you're going to want to run as much HP as humanly possible, so that you can get the max amount of damage amped from your 4th ability. Now for your reactor on this boss killing Serena build, it honestly doesn't matter. She doesn't really need any stats from the reactor, so you can run any reactor you want to. Okay, so let's take a look at the Hailey mod I use for this build. Now, this is my general Hailey build I call cooldown. So we're going to run max cooldown or thereabout by using MP conversion, Nimble Fingers, which by default just get you a lot of cooldown. And you're going to want to run multi-talented. Now this is because you're going to be spamming your first ability. And multi-talented gives you cooldown if you spam Dimension, what your first ability is. And this will also, with these 3 mods combined, allow you to almost always have your first ability up. Pretty much once it's done casting, it's off cooldown, so you can just continuously spam it. Now you guys may be worried about mana, but that's why you run Strong Mentality, Maximize Conservation, and Energy Collector. These are going to help with your mana issues. You're basically never going to actually run out of mana with this in between the arcade tree. And this will just, help you spam out your abilities. And then we run Shot Focus. Of course, you're going to run this in pretty much any gun build ever because this maximizes your firearm attack. And then for the last 3, you could pretty much rotate these however you want to. I run defense, so that you can pretty much just face tank anything. So I run HP amplification, increased HP, and then increased defense. You could change these out if you want to, for pretty much anything you want to once again. And then you don't actually run any transient mods here. Hailey doesn't really have good transient mods, so this is basically how it's going to look for this build. And this will be good for all general content. Let's go ahead and take a look at Hailey's arcade tree for this build. Now this is once again the general version of this. This will make you kind of bulky and get you your max amount of damage. So for this, we're going to run a whole bunch of firearm attack, pretty much consistent across probably every Hailey build out there. You're going to also run crit, so you can try and get that 97% crit. And then for our mutant cell, we're going to run defense neutralization. Now this is because this is the only good one for gun characters, as it reduces defense and goes ahead and reduces other resistances. And Hailey can easily proc this with her first ability. And then 2 unique things you're going to want to run is you're going to want to run 2 nodes of HP. This just makes you tankier. You can actually change these out for weak point ones if you want to, or something else in the tree. I like to run this because I want that little extra beef. And then you're going to want to run the MP recovery up node, as you guys can see that in the middle. This one's because this will help with your MP costs and basically make sure your 3rd ability never drops from you running out of MP. Now for Hailey's Reactor, if you're only going to use Masterpiece, you're going to want Dimension Reactor Chill, since you'll only be really using your first ability damage-wise, and your 3rd ability doesn't actually do direct damage, it only ups your stats. But if you're going to use your second and fourth ability with other guns, you're going to want to actually swap that to a singular reactor. Now, for this build, the substats I'd recommend for your reactor would be cost down, and then you can run cooldown for your next one, or pretty much any stat. The only one that really matters here is the cost down, since you're once again wanting to worry about your MP so you never run out, and you're going to be spamming your first ability a lot, which can eat away at your MP really quickly. Alright, time for the Gley mods. Now once again, I wouldn't recommend running her without Enzo. Now this is because you don't have 100% crit rate without Enzo, but even without Enzo, this build's fairly good on her. I just recommend Enzo for the max DPS value. But let's go ahead and go into this build. Now this is a fairly general Gley build. I'm sure most people run a similar build. But we're going to run Focus on Dimension, Nimble Fingers, MP Conversion is for your cooldown. And mix this with Maximum Duration and Skill Extension for some more duration. Now you want to run these because this will allow your third ability to be continuously up. So running these plus what we're going to run on your reactor is going to allow it so that every time your third ability runs out, which is your infinite ammo, you can immediately cast it again for a continuous uptime of infinite ammo. And then you're going to run Shot Focus. This will go ahead and give you increased firearm attack, which is pretty much all Gley's going to need in this build. And then increased HP and Stim Accelerant for more HP, since Gley only has HP, she doesn't actually have shields. And then the last two ones, which I have, are Anti-Venom and Toxic Antibody. These are your two free slots. I'm running Resistance up. You can run pretty much anything you want here. I'd recommend running Elemental Resistance, and you can just rotate these out for anything. So if you're fighting chill enemies, you can rotate these out for chill resistance, fire resistance, so on and so forth. And of course, you can also rotate them out for just plain old defense. And then Predator Instinct, I'll go ahead and throw up on the screen right there what that does. But you're going to run this because Masterpiece is a continuous fire gun, which means you can actually use this. Now, I will admit, Gley actually has a pretty unique arcade tree in current builds because she doesn't run any mutant cells because she can't. There are no good gun mutant cells for her to run an Andaline up there in the gun section, so you just don't run any mutant cells. This is fairly standard, to my understanding. From what I've heard from other players, they also do not run any mutant cells here. Unless you're fighting a fire enemy, then you could technically run the fire resistance Andaline, but I think that will be overkill based off what we got in the mods. But other than that, you just run any kind of firearm attack up you can, run the crit in this build, and then go ahead and run 2 HP just for that little bit extra bulkiness. Now for Gley's Reactor, you're just going to want to get pretty much any kind of reactor. It doesn't really matter. I run singular, but it doesn't matter. Only the subsets matter. What you're going to run is cooldown and duration. This will help with your third ability keeping up infinitely, so that you'll get the perfect cooldown to duration ratio. And those are the only two subsets that you can run on her. So across all these builds for your component set, you're going to want to run Annihilation outside of Serena General. I'll go ahead and throw up on the screen what the substats for each build will be, for each component. But across all these, you're going to want to run HP up on your cores, and then your resistance will change based off what you're fighting. You also probably want to throw in at least one defense across each build. And the reason you're running Annihilation here is just because this gives the most amount of firearm attack, and is the easiest to proc across most component sets. It's just in general a good one to use. We already covered the boss killing Serena build, but this is the general one for all other content outside of boss killing that I would use. So it's pretty standard. You're going to want to run overwhelming HP, increased HP amplification, wing scales, and increased shield. This is all so you can get the max amount of HP possible, which will work with Serena's fourth ability to do the max amount of damage possible. And then, personally, I run NP Conversion, Multi-Talented, and Nimble Fingers, so you can always have your fourth ability pretty much up. It'll never be down, as long as you make sure that your third ability is the last one you used for Multi-Talented. It's because your third ability is Dimension, and this will basically give you max cooldown or thereabout. And this will just allow you to have your fourth ability up always, which is your highest DPS window. And then for your last one, you're going to want to run Shot Focus for max firearm damage. And skill extension is optional here. That's kind of a free slot. You can run whatever you want to. I run skill extension once again, so I have a higher DPS window. But you could rotate that around with pretty much anything you want to. The other thing I'd recommend is maybe something with MP recovery, your cost down, so that you don't run out of mana too quickly, but you know, our component set will help with that too. So for Serena's arcade tree, the general version, it's very similar to the boss killing one. We're just gonna run as much damage as possible with attack and as much as HP. And then for your mutant cell, you're gonna want defense neutralization. This is once again because Serena's fourth ability basically works with her bullets, and the fact that every time she hits a target with her bullet and they're at full HP, they're gonna get their defense reduced as long as their fourth ability's up. And really the only difference between this one and your boss killing version is this one runs MP recovery up to help with you just continuously staying in the air and having your abilities constantly active. Now for your reactor, you're probably going to want to run a singular reactor here. Now the reactor doesn't actually matter which type it is, since you're not really going to be relying on that damage, but this will give your Q a little bit, or your first ability, a little bit more damage. And then for your substats, you're going to want to run cost down, and usually something like cooldown, but the second stat can pretty much change to whatever you want, as long as you have that skill cost down. So for the general Serena build, you're going to want to run Hunter Set. This will just help with mana issues you're going to have, as personally, I've run into a lot of mana issues while flying. And for your cores, you're going to want to go ahead and run HP up, of course, and then resistances are going to be based off what you're fighting, and defense, you'll probably want to run at least one defense up. I'll go ahead and throw up the substats on the screen there, so you guys can see what substats you should run for each component. And let's go ahead and wrap it up for this video. Now, I'm sorry I went through some of the build a little bit faster than normal. That's because we had so much to cover in this video, and I didn't want to make it too long. But I should have covered all the major points of this. But if you guys did enjoy this video, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Also, go ahead and let me know what you guys think of the build. Also, I do stream on Twitch every day, so if you guys want to hit me up there and discuss the build or anything for Descendant, I'll go ahead and throw up the information on the screen there. And I do appreciate y'all watching this video, and if you did enjoy it, or if you're going to try out the build, I appreciate you hitting that like button. It does help the video a lot, and I'll catch y'all later.